Goes forward, and it's really hardly the day for rain on the parade of the Apollo missions. This is the day that we get the Apollo 10 on the way, the dress rehearsal, to take a look at the landing site for the July landing. And then, while the schedule is lower than it was expected to be at one time, it does provide for 4 or 5 more moon missions, perhaps. But that's the end of the space program as far as exploration of other planets go, until more funds come along, and the pipeline is indeed drying up, and there's going to be a delay before we can mount another lunar landing or deep space probe. What we move into next, the next phase, is Earth orbital machinery, Earth orbiting space stations, and there is a plan to do a lot of that in the 1970s. But so far, when the Apollo program ends after 4 or 5 missions to the moon, that will be the end of our planetary exploration for a while. The Apollo 10 is on the way to the moon, as we have reported. Translunar injection has taken place, and now the transposition and docking. Transposition will be about 8,100 miles from our Earth here, and by 10 minutes later, by the time they do the docking, they'll be out 12,000 miles from Earth. Such is the speed of space travel. You might be interested in some of the speeds of space travel. We've got a few of the figures here that they are going to be undergoing. They go very fast, and for space travel, they go very slow in these moon missions. For instance, in the Earth orbit, that's 17,000, roughly 400 miles an hour. I think it was 17,002 for their trip on this particular flight. But they get down at one point to just 2,120 miles an hour. That's because now, from here on out to the moon, the Earth's gravity is going to be slowing them down, pulling them back, trying to get them back to the good Earth. And, of course, they, having built this magnificent machine, are determined to break loose from that gravity. They'll go on toward the moon, but by the time they're about 35,000 miles from the moon, they will have reached the slowest point of their flight, and they'll just be going 2,120 miles an hour. But at that point, 35,000 miles out from the moon, the lunar gravity begins to take over and pull them toward the moon. So as they arrive opposite the moon, or at the moon, they'll be going 5,700 miles per hour. When they get around to the far side of the moon, they slow down to stay in moon orbit so that the moon doesn't throw them back toward Earth. They have to slow down to 3,720 miles an hour, which is the orbital speed around the moon. Now, 17,000 something is the orbital speed around Earth, 5,000 something the orbital speed around, or 3,000 something the orbital speed around the moon. The reason for that is orbital speed is determined by that speed necessary to create enough momentum to balance the pull of the body that you're orbiting against the speed that would take you away from that orbit, that pull of gravity. And that gravity is determined by the mass of the surface of the body that you're orbiting. Well, the moon is a great deal smaller than the Earth, and its gravity is just 1/6 that of the Earth, so the speed is slower, 3,720 miles per hour to get around the moon. Then to get back out of the lunar gravity pull and come back to Earth, they've got to speed up to 6,188 miles per hour, and they finally reach their highest speed. With the Earth pulling them back at an ever-increasing speed from the moon, they finally plunge into the Earth's atmosphere at 24,695 miles per hour. Quite a flight for human beings from this planet as they go out into space to another planet. The flight is going ahead according to the flight plan. We're a little ahead here on our we should be showing you what is taking place at this time. It is 12:51, is it not? And they are supposed to have begun the transposition at 12:49, but we haven't heard that from Mission Control as yet. Our animation is showing what should be taking place out there at this time. They should have separated in the command module. That should have occurred just 2 minutes ago. And as Leo Krupp told you out there at Downey, California, a little while ago, they're moving to 50 feet away from the spent S-4B third stage, with its precious cargo of the lunar module still in the nose. It's in something called the SLAW, spacecraft LEM adapter. It's a parking garage for that vehicle. We're not hearing anything from Houston at the moment. Don't know why such silence from Mission Control. We are showing you by our animation here what is scheduled according to the exact timeline of the flight plan, but we're not getting any word from Houston. This does not mean that Houston isn't getting any word from the spacecraft. It does mean that something's keeping the Houston communicator, Mac Riley, from reporting it to us.
Roger. Bob, I'd say that data's not good. Our cold helium pressure looks...
We may be having trouble on our own circuits here. We have heard from the spacecraft that we have separation. It's been relayed to me here, but I have not heard the word from Houston itself. But the relay here is that we have separation. We'll just keep tuned in here. We're getting these intermittent reports. These men in the spacecraft are pretty busy. They're not talking it up at this point. This is a critical phase of the maneuver, of course.
Apollo 10 is pitching around now, the guidance and control officer says. Pitching around, and then we'll come back in and dock with the lunar module. Altitude now 3,580 nautical miles. Velocity is down to 25,401.
That world is just incredible. There goes the panel, Charlie. Roger. How do you read it, Gene? Not clear. We don't have the S4B yet, but there goes the panel. Roger.
Those are the panels.
The world is incredible. Really moving? Holy moly, I sure hope we can show it to you. I really do.
That's Eugene Cernan, whose favorite word is fantastic.
Okay, I got the S4B. Roger.
Means he can see the S4B.
And there goes another panel. Roger, all retrograde, we hope.
That means they hope the panel are falling back of them and not coming forward to where they are.
I don't know what it is up here right now. Yeah.
Those are the SLA panels that house the lunar module. They've been jettisoned.
Charlie, I got the world on closed circuit here, so we're going to try and get high gain. Roger, standing by.
At the world on closed circuit, we're going to get a picture of ourselves from 10,000 miles out.
Okay, man, there's high gain. The TV is on. I should be coming down the, and I'll have to adjust it as we come along into the S4B. Hey, it's beautiful, Gene. We got the black and white now with a little time delay on the color.
You can see that color in the middle of the picture there. That's Mission Control in Houston, looking at the television screen.
We got the S4B coming into the top.
A picture of ourselves from 10,000 miles out.
Okay, man, there's high gain. The TV is on. I should be coming down the, and I'll have to adjust it as we come along into the S4B. Hey, it's beautiful, Gene. We got the black and white now with a little time delay on the color.
You can see that color in the middle of the picture there. That's Mission Control in Houston, looking at the television screen.
We got the S4B coming into the top. The sun's really shining on it. Okay, I'll try to adjust it for you. Hey, we got the color now.
There it is. There it is. There's the moon in color.
Shining on it.
That is the Earth in color.
Hey, we got the color now. You're on air, babe. Oh, that's beautiful.
Look at
got
that.
The color? Yes, sir. It's looking great. I'm sorry it's tilted a little bit. That's the best I can do with the bracket. No sweat. We got it right in the center of the screen, Gene. It looks like the sun's really bright on it. Tremendously so.
That's Eugene Cernan in the spacecraft, astronaut Charles Duke, the capsule communicator in the ground in Houston. The voices you hear also.
The sun's got the S4 bit, the limb sort of blotted out. It's so bright.
Isn't that something? Look at that. 10,000 miles, and there we are.
Hey, you're zooming in. Looks really good, Gene.
Now, is that the Earth, or is
Charlie,
that
I got it closed down all the way. Does that help any? Right in the center of the limb now, we still got a couple of real bright spots, but it's looking real good in the color. We can see the probe, the drogue.
I'm afraid our excitement about seeing the Earth is a little bit premature. That's not the Earth at all. Over in that long distance, it looked like, and even looked like you could even make out the North American and South American continents. That's how your imagination can run riot. This is the S4B.
Gene, it's really looking good. It's the silver panels that are reflecting back real brightly. They're awful us right now, too. Right, the resolution is fantastic. You're drifting off just to the right a little bit.
We're looking right into the nose of the third stage of the Saturn rocket. And the lunar module is there in its garage, the lunar adapter, and we see the nose of it. Now, Cernan told us a little while that he hoped he could see the Earth. This is a fascinating picture and has more scientific value for the...
Houston, you can't believe the picture we're getting. The resolution is really fantastic. I'll tell you, this monitor makes it great.
More significance for the space scientists and the engineers and technicians right at this moment. I'm sure that Cernan will give us that picture of Earth if he possibly can. They are out ahead of the...
How's the color, Charlie? Say again? How's the color? Hey, it's really beautiful, Gene. You got it right. You got it framed just perfectly. Okay, I think the color will be beautiful once we can show you the Earth. Right.
That's a little 12-pound camera, 12-pound color camera, and the monitor is just 3 pounds, fits on the side of it, and it's just about a 2 1/4 by 3 1/4 picture. What they're looking at in their monitor. Now they're out ahead of the of that third stage.
Oh, Snoopy sure looks good. Yeah, he sure do.
Snoopy is a lunar module. They're calling the lunar module Snoopy for this mission, and the command module will be circling alone over the moon.
Oh, Charlie Brown's a massive cord and wire floating around here, though. I can imagine.
The Earth, it would be in the background there somewhere, not obviously on the picture, but they're out ahead of the third stage and looking back at it with Earth beyond it somewhere in the background. The moon is to their backs.
Houston, Charlie Brown, I've settled down now on the zoom, and the closing rate you see is the closing rate we've got. Roger, we copy. Genus, it looks like we have a bright spot, maybe on your Vidicon. coming in on the Vidicon tube on the black and white. It's right above the drogue. Now, we've got it in real life. The camera's fully in the shade. That's just a reflection coming right off the Snoopy. Right. Ken, we're afraid you might be burning a hole in the Vidicon tube. Move it off a little bit off for Snoop. I think those panels are so bright we might be getting problems with the Vidicon tube. All right.
If they've already got it, they've got a little bit of a bright spot you see that stays there. Even though they pan off, stays there right on your screen and ours in the center. Not too severe.
I can just cover it up for a while if you'd like. Stand by.
And he's got his hand in front of the lens now. It'd be pretty hard for our cameraman here to do. Their arms aren't long enough to go around the camera in the first place, and their hands aren't big enough to cover the lens. We have other things that get in the way of our pictures. Well, at least we had a great moment of excitement there, thinking that was the Earth.
Snoopy back if you
Still
give
looks
it to
a little
us.
bit like it.
I'll be glad to. Hey, that's looking great now, except for a couple of fingers there or something. Good resolution, that's what they were. You got your big hands in the way. Yeah, hey, I don't know what you did, but it's really beautiful now. Really great. We're just a little closer. Yeah. Hey, the color is great, Gene. How's that for the front porch? Oh, boy, that's beautiful.
Those are the steps leading down from the lunar module. Those are the 10 steps which will carry then to the moon's surface on a future flight.
Hey, what's that guy doing on the front porch? That's the green man, Gordo.
Just think.
John estimates 50 feet close. Roger.
These two ships are moving along 50 feet apart, 25,000 miles an hour, 10,000 miles from the Earth's surface.
All I can say is it's really happening, and what hasn't happened you haven't seen yet. Roger. Really great resolution.
That was Gordon Cooper. He and Charlie Duke are both on the Capcom console.
Gordon Cooper, one of the original Mercury astronauts.
And that orange platform is the front porch.
Front porch is a little area out of which the men in the lunar module will leave the lunar module and then down those steps to the surface of the moon on the flight 11, which will go in July if this flight continues to go as successfully as it has in these first 3 hours and 15 minutes. 4 hours and 15 minutes now. Three hours and 15 minutes. My computer back.
Charlie, we can't be more than about 5-10 feet away. Roger.
They've got a very small angle of error possible there.
Ken, it's looking real stable to us. We show you closing finally.
It's like parking a brand new limousine in a garage in which you've got about a quarter of an inch clearance on either side. don't want to scrape those new fenders. They can't afford to scrape their fenders in this mission. They're moving in there at less than about a third of a mile an hour. They could go, perhaps 15, 16 times that fast before they would undergo serious damage in a too hard a meeting. But they can't be off the line very far as they insert that docking probe into the docking column.
Roger. Houston, you're looking good. We can see the markings at a rendezvous with it. Looks like you just docked. Roger, we got a capture. You haven't fired yet. Roger.
This is John Young, veteran of 2 previous Gemini missions at the controls.
We can read the numbers on the limb docking window.
Those are gradations etched in the window of the lunar module.
We're there. Got 2 grays. Roger. You saw the docket, Charlie. We didn't get any master alarm. Everything looks snug. Roger. Didn't look like there was any, hardly any after post-docking oscillation. Yep.
They didn't bump scarcely at all, just slid together there. You can see the docking window of the lunar module. It has, say, gradations on it to aid in the alignment of its docking.
Roger.
You can see the, look like some of those panels still floating around there behind them, moving, of course, at 25,000 miles an hour, too. And those are the thrusters of the action control system. These little bells there. Those are 100-pound thrusters.
Yeah, that's a great picture of the quad.
They're called quads.
I'll try to take you on a quick tour. I may have to hold you up for a little bit here. Okay, John's going down to the LEB, and I'm going to the left seat now. Roger, Tom. We're standing by.
They're changing seats again. Stafford's going over to the command seat, and Young is going back to the center couch. Those little thrusters are called quads because they come in clusters of 4 each.
We'd like you to face the logic.
That was one of the reaction control system quads you saw there at the last. We're coming back up here now with another picture. Altitude 6,469 nautical miles. Velocity 21,280 feet per second.
Space navigation is in nautical miles, feet per second, rather than statute miles and miles per hour. I suppose someday we'll all have to shift over to that and begin to think in those terms. We've been trying to translate into miles per hour and statute miles, which is the miles we know on Earth, and miles per hour, the thing we measure speed in most of the time, our earthbound existences.
Charlie, you're going to have to look at the same picture for a while until we get this integrity check complete. Roger, we understand you're busy.
Leo Krupp out in Downey, California, what are they doing at this moment? They understand they're busy, and I'm sure they are, but just what are they doing?
Well, Walter, John's down in the lower equipment bay, and what he's doing is pressurizing the tunnel between the command module and the lunar module. He'll then remove the tunnel hatch, and he'll go up into the tunnel, verify that all 12 of the docking latches were automatically actuated and they're all latched properly. He'll then take the umbilicals from the lunar module and plug them into the tunnel wall so we have an electrical connection between the lunar module and the command module. He'll do those preparations, and then he'll come out and reinstall the tunnel hatch again.
This is the hardest physical work of the whole trip, isn't it, Leo?
No, sir. They will not remove the tunnel hardware at this time. All he'll do is take the hatch down so he can get access to the umbilicals and check the latches. They won't remove the tunnel hardware, the probe and drogue, until after they're in lunar orbit.
That's the tough one.
Yes, sir.
Then they really are doing manual labor. It seems peculiar in a way, and it's a little hard to explain, except it's involved in saving weight and a lot of other gear, apparently. But with all of this highly complicated equipment, computerized, transistorized, miniaturized, and all of this in the space capsule, when they get down to this business of putting these two spacecraft together and taking that docking, that hatch out from between them, suddenly man has to get up there, and it's Young's job. He wrestles with it and pulls at it and tugs and yanks and finally moves it around and gets it back where he needs it so that they can open up the space between the command module and the lunar module for, in this case, Stafford and Cernan to
check the latches. They won't remove the tunnel hardware, the probe and drogue, until after they're in lunar orbit.
That's the tough one.
Yes, sir.
Then they really are doing manual labor. It seems peculiar in a way, and it's a little hard to explain, except it's involved in saving weight and a lot of other gear, apparently. But with all of this highly complicated equipment, computerized, transistorized, miniaturized, and all of this in the space capsule, when they get down to this business of putting these two spacecraft together and taking that docking, that hatch out from between them, suddenly man has to get up there, and it's Young's job. He wrestles with it and pulls at it and tugs and yanks and finally moves it around and gets it back where he needs it so that they can open up the space between the command module and the lunar module for, in this case, Stafford and Cernan to climb down into the lunar module and make their way to within 10 miles of the moon's surface, which is the name of the game in Operation Dress Rehearsal, which is Apollo 10. The dress rehearsal to prepare the way for man to land on the moon in July. CBS News color coverage of the flight of Apollo 10 will continue in a moment.
.461 individual, separate, distinct parts. They don't mean much to you yet. In fact, not until Western Electric puts them together. Precisely, efficiently. Then all 461 parts turn into a Bell telephone so that you can dial almost anywhere. To help you keep in touch, Western Electric backs up your Bell telephone company by making dependable phones and things that connect them. Does our name ring a bell? Yes, millions of them.
I'm Walter Cronkite back here at the Kennedy Space Center at our CBS News headquarters for the flight of Apollo 10, a flight which is going exceedingly well up to now. As you have seen those remarkable pictures from space, and you're seeing one now from that new Westinghouse color camera, we have seen the transposition, that is the command module leaving the S4B third stage of the Saturn, turning around, docking with the lunar module. It will be ejecting the lunar module, pulling it back out, and letting the S4B go on its way around the moon and out to the sun at 4:58 p.m. That's another 40 minutes from now. just about that time. Meanwhile, they arrived there, hooked up with the S-4B, taking a good look at the lunar module in its garage and getting set for that ejection move. We are still hoping that Eugene Cernan, with that camera, will pan off and give us a view of the Earth from out there 10,000 miles or more away, as they are now, moving along at almost 25,000 miles an hour. He indicated he was going to try that a little earlier, and he may yet. These fellows are giving us a lot more television than had actually been on the timeline and the schedule of the flight, as Tom Stafford had indicated he might. Each transmission scheduled for around 10 to 15 minutes, and now this one already has gone on for 25, and they're still showing pictures. The crew of Apollo 10 have shown a great deal more interest in television from out in space than the earlier crews, which seem to be a little bit reluctant in spending time with television. They had only the black and white RCA camera with which to work, but there was that reluctance, noticeably, it seemed to be in the earlier flights of Apollo 7 and 8 and 9. But Stafford has said all along that the view from space is too terrific not to share with the people who are footing the bill. And he plans to show the blue globe of the Earth, marbled in white clouds. And as Apollo 10 soars away from the Earth and toward the moon, and finally we'll see that gray pitted disk that is the moon itself with that remarkable camera. Eugene Cernan said at one time, I've got a quote of his here, "Our feeling about this is that I could sit here and try to tell you what the colors look like on sunrise and sunset, and you could attempt to picture them in your mind. Until you've seen them, until you've been able to feel them with your own eyes, you can't transmit it to another person. With this color television, we hope it will be able to do something that I think all of us in the program have wanted to do for a long time, and that's share some of the experiences in the things that are happening." Thanks to my over-enthusiasm, we're getting two thrills about seeing the Earth from outer